Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. My name is Rod Brown, and thank you so much for joining the Leadership Academy Lead or Lose series. Today, I want to talk about growth. Um, the year is winding up, and I would expect, or I would hope that over the past year that you have experienced some growth. Typically, if we're not growing or if something isn't growing, it's typically stagnant, which means that it's going the other way. It's dying or it's withering, right? So we want to maintain growth in our lives um, all the time. And as leaders, we have to be in growth mode because it is so important that we grow again, on a regular basis. I mean, growth is a natural process. Anything and everything that's ever been created was created to grow. I can't find anything that is that's living that was created to die. Everything is created to grow. Death is a part of living, of course, but in terms of once something has been created, the natural process is for it to grow. Growth tends to be gradual and adaptive, right? We grow and our growth adapts to our environment. Growth creates confidence, especially in an organization. When I'm leading an organization, when I'm leading a team and we experience growth over X amount of time, then that just yields or breeds confidence within the entire organization, which means that growth also benefits many, not just the leader, not just the one that's in charge. It benefits everyone that's, growth is a part of. So I would expect that growth should be something that's very important to you, something that should be on the forefront. Now, when it comes to growth, we need to focus on three things really quickly. One is the seeds that we're planting. Number two is the sower, and that's you. And then number three, the surroundings that we plant those seeds. So if we take a look at the seeds very quickly, we have to know that everything begins with a seed. That seed could be a physical seed. All living things originate from a seed. Or if it's a business or if it's an idea or an invention, it typically begins with a thought. Those are also seeds. The size of the seed, necessarily, it doesn't matter. The size of the seed doesn't matter. If I have an acorn the size of my hand and I plant that acorn, well, it's going to produce an oak tree. If I have an acorn the size of a quarter and I plant that acorn, it's going to produce what? An oak tree. So the size of the seed doesn't necessarily matters. What matters is the consistency of my sowing, the consistency of my planting over time. And the seed typically has everything that's required for it to deliver the outcome. It typically has everything that it needs already built into the seed. So, if we look at an acorn, for example, you plant the acorn, everything that acorn needs to produce an oak tree is inside of that seed. So I don't have to manufacture anything else. Some seeds of a leader, for example, some of the things that you should be sowing with your organization, with the people that you lead. Number one is trust. If you want trust or you want to be trusted, you need to be sowing trust, which means you need to trust the folks that are on your team. You need to trust that they're going to do their job, they're going to do their responsibility. And remember, for you, trust is like currency, it's like money. So when you lose it, it's going to be very, very difficult to get it back. So walk around knowing that you have, $1 million worth of trust. And every time you lose that trust, every time you do something that violates the trust, you're losing that money. You're losing that currency. So you need to guard it just like it's money or just like it's something that's very, very valuable. The next thing as a leader that you need to be sowing is respect. Again, if you want respect, you need to give respect. And I think it was Aretha Franklin that said, RESPECT, finds out what it means to me. In general, overall, there's some things that we just do to show respect and to show honor. But also, respect means different things to different people. So someone may say or may think if you walk into a room and you don't speak to them or acknowledge that they're there, that's disrespectful. So make sure you understand those little small nuances that may or could potentially bother someone or take them to a place where they actually lose respect for you. You should also be sowing seeds of empowerment. You should be empowering those that are on your team, empowering those that you lead. And it takes a lot of confidence to do that. Oftentimes people don't want to give up power because they think they're losing something when they give up power, when they empower folks to make decisions or when they empower folks to take ownership of certain roles and responsibilities. They think they're losing something when they do that, when actually that shows or that's evidence of a strong leader, when you can sow empowerment or you can give folks empowerment in the areas that they're responsible for. Now, let's talk about the sower, and that's you. As a leader, when it comes to you sowing specific things like respect, like trust, like empowerment, things like that, you need to be very intentional about doing that. So a leader is intentional, which means that a leader thinks about and a leader is focused on being a sower, right? They're focused on that. So it's not happenstance. So if I'm intentional about it, I'm being proactive about being a giver, being a sower, or sowing into those that are on the team. A leader knows when to sow and when not to sow. There's something called perennials, and sometimes if you plant a perennial the wrong time of the year, then those flowers, they're not going to what? They're not going to come up. They're not going to grow. They're not going to bloom. Why? Because at a certain time of the year, based on the climate, it's not the right time to plant those type of flowers. So the same thing when it comes to sowing certain things, or when it comes to asking your folks or doing certain things for them, it's a good time and it's a bad time. Doing the right thing at the wrong time will create resentment. So it's real important that you don't do that. And leaders know that the livelihood of the team depends on how and when they sow into their team. They just know that. So the livelihood of the entire team, they know if I'm not being respectful or if I'm not trusting a certain individual on the team, it's going to affect the entire team, not just that one individual or not just the relationship that I have with that one individual. Okay? Let's talk about the surrounding really quickly. The environment is extraordinarily important that you create in your organization, that you create on your team. Because the environment, it will ultimately decide if what you sow survives. It will ultimately decide if your seed will ultimately survive. So that surrounding is so important. The surrounding has to be suitable. It has to be a good environment for growth. And growth can't happen in bad environments. Growth can't happen in resentful environments. Growth can't happen when there's not trust in specific environments. Okay? Also, when it comes to the surrounding, watermelons, they don't grow in Alaska. And they don't grow in Alaska for a specific reason, because of the soil, because of the climate, because of the overall environment, right? Unless you create an environment that's conducive to the growth of watermelons. But then you have to maintain that. What you want is you want a natural environment. You want natural surroundings where nothing is faked. Trust, respect, empowerment, those things that you sow, those things are real. And those things are intentional. And the folks that you lead, they know that you're real. They know that those things aren't fake and those things aren't manufactured. Okay. And lastly, when it comes to the surrounding, leaders know when it's time to change the environment that you're currently in, or when it's time to change environments. So let's say you're in environment A, and there is some obvious disrespect in that environment. There's some obvious mistrust in the environment. Well, you need to change that environment to make those things present, the things that you need present in order to experience this growth. Or you need to remove the entire team and change environments completely. Okay, which means you may need to change locations, or you may need to change the team. You may need to, just start over, because you can't get to a point where, because of the negative influences, none of this stuff is working. Let me just flip this whole thing and let me start over. So let me change the entire environment. Okay, if you want to change a culture in any organization, you have to change the rules. When you change the rules, you change the culture. A rule change will create a shift in culture. So if you have a culture that you're not happy with, you need to change the rules or create rules that will ultimately develop the type of culture or environment or surrounding that you want to have. Okay. Lastly, I will leave you with growth requires innovation. You have to be innovative. Diversity is so important also to growth. If you want to experience exponential growth, you have to develop leaders. Having great followers and supporting those followers, that's really good. And you will experience some growth as you add on strong followers or add on strong team members. However, if you want to experience exponential growth, then you will ultimately develop those team members into leaders so that they can have an attitude of ownership and they can lead the area that they're responsible for in your organization. And again, you have to have a thriving environment that's conducive to growth and that's conducive to positivity. So ultimately, everyone wins. Okay, that is your lead or lose call today. We talked about growth, we talked about the seed, we talked about the sower, and we talked about the surroundings. Today's call was sponsored by ShareNote.com, which is an electronic health record system designed specifically for behavioral health care. We want to thank you so much for listening to the call. Also, if you want to reach out to us, you can reach me on Twitter at Roderick L. Brown. That's at Roderick L. Brown. Via Twitter. Shoot us some questions and we'll definitely respond. Thanks again. I send you blessings. Have an incredible day.